You're listening to the Spirituality with Ashley podcast, where we talk about all the spiritual and personal growth and development things. I'm your host, Ashley, a certified Akashic Records reader and energy healer and trained psychic medium. You could say I'm a spiritual growth coach. And you are in the right place if you're ready to expand your consciousness and open yourself up to the limitless possibilities of our existence. Come along with me on this journey of exploration where the universe speaks and we listen with open hearts. Let's dive in. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. And also welcome back for all of my regular listeners. How are you guys doing? I am doing well. Thanks for asking. And today's podcast episode, as you probably saw from the title, is about the mother wound. And this is something that's been coming up a lot for me lately. And I didn't really recognize it at first. It started with these subtle, subconscious patterns that I was seeing in myself, like people pleasing, feeling like I wasn't good enough, always pushing myself to be perfect, or feeling like I had to work extra hard just to be worthy of love and success. And when I really sat with it, I realized, oh, this is all tied to my relationship with my mom. Fun. Love that for me. And it's not about blaming her or anybody else. She had her own wounds, her own struggles, but I realized that I've been carrying some of that weight too. The expectations, the unspoken messages about what it means to be good enough or lovable. And honestly, that's been a really huge part of my healing journey, acknowledging these patterns, understanding where they come from, and then working to break them. And I'm not there yet. I'm still on the path, still figuring it out, but I wanted to invite you to come on this journey with me. If any of this resonates with you, if you feel like you've been carrying all the weight of generational expectations or struggling with self-worth, then maybe this is something that you are also ready to explore. So I invite you to come along with me. I'm going to share my journal prompts. I've already been sharing them on Instagram, and I'm trying to share my journey and open up and be vulnerable. And holy crap, it's so hard. It is so hard that I was doing this thing where I was trying to post every day on Instagram, and I was doing really well. I was posting every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. I have so much to say, and I'm not trying to rhyme. And I was supposed to announce the mother wound healing for October. I was supposed to announce that on October 1st. And I got so terrified and triggered and just like, oh my God. I started freaking out a little bit. And then I just didn't post anything on October 1st. I don't think I posted anything. And I was like, man, I just need to sit with this. And I've been getting messages so consistently since I started my business from the Akashic Records, from other readers, that from my guides, from my higher self, that I need to be myself, that I have to be authentic. I have to 100% just be the raw version of me. And I have a really hard time with that. I mean, I'm pretty much myself, but I have this like really thick wall up as far as like allowing people in, allowing people to like really know me, not just the public image that I like to portray. And I feel like I've gotten my public image down to a T. But now that I've done that, I'm like, oh, crud. Now I need to like go the next layer and find out like who I really am. Like outside of my public image that I'm showing the world, like why can't I be comfortable with who I am outside of my public image? And I've been breaking down a lot of stuff lately, and this is not what the episode's about. I should do a separate episode about it, and I probably will, but this is on my mind, so I'm talking about it right now, and then I will get back into the purpose of this episode, which is the mother wound. But this is bringing up the like dealing with the mother wound and posting on social media about it is bringing up a lot of stuff for me. And I decided to do it because I'm working on letting go of my shame. I have shame about so many things. I have shame about being molested when I was a kid. That has nothing, that's literally, I almost poked myself in the eye. I literally had no part in bringing that about. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I was like, hey, I would love for that to happen to me. No, like, So why would I feel shame about something that I had nothing to do with as far as it occurring? Um, and then I also feel shame about just having emotions and showing them to people. And you know what? I've been unpacking this a lot as I've been over the last week, trying to share how I'm feeling, really share my real self, share my stories more, open up, be more vulnerable, and really express my feelings publicly. And I'm a thing. I have a saying, go hard or go home. It's not mine. I've been saying it for a long time. I started saying it when started going to the gym and I was like, yeah, go hard or go home. But now I say that in life because I feel like it just resonates with my soul because like that it take the initiative, Aries, go first energy. It's not just Aries, it's the cardinal signs, I'm pretty sure, where we're just like, yeah, we'll be the first ones. Sure, let's go. Bring it on. I'm actually taking an astrology certification course right now because I was like, screw it, I can't do this on my own. I need accountability. So I will be talking about astrology more, but I'm not there yet. So I'm not going to list all the other cardinal signs. Anyway, though, so I decided that I need to talk about my stuff because I remember reading this book by Brene Brown, The Gifts of Our Imperfections or something. I'm going to reread it. It was amazing. I cried so much and it just really opened up my mindset. And this is when I was married and I was just starting my healing journey. And anyway, when I read that book, I realized what I learned. Actually, I didn't realize I learned or remembered, whatever, however you want to say it, that shame breeds shame. When you have shame about something, it makes you want to hide it. It makes you want to keep it a secret. And then the more secret you keep it, the more shame it breeds. And it's just this cycle that does not serve you. And why do we have shame anyway? What is shame? Shame, what is that? Like, it's a waste of your energy. So the things that I'm feeling shame about, I'm feeling shame about expressing my emotions. I'm feeling shame about speaking about my personal experiences publicly. And that's what I wanted to do a podcast episode about is like where we're getting these ideas of the things that are and are not okay. Like where you draw the line as far as like, when is it you just oversharing to the world? And that's kind of what I'm working through right now. Like, and it's different for everybody. Your personal boundaries about what you're comfortable sharing are going to be different from somebody else's. And so, me opening up about my grief and how I feel about my mom passing, I don't feel like that's something to be ashamed of. I don't feel like that's something for me to be embarrassed to talk about. I mean, we all have moms. We're all going to go through this experience one day, or we've been through it already. And when I was going through when I mean I am going through, but when it happened, I was like, man, I wish people talked about this more. I had a few friends who told me about their experiences and it was so helpful. And so as I'm diving into the mother wound and talking about my grief and opening up about that whole experience, I realized like, oh man, there's so many things I haven't been talking about just because I was like, oh no, like I don't want to put my life on the internet. I mean, so who cares? Like, who cares? So that was kind of my pep talk to myself. And also to any of you, because I know a lot of us deal with the fear of judgment, the fear of rejection, and the fear of being seen. And I mean, I'm dealing with all of that too. I've been killed, raped, tortured, shunned, ostracized, all those things. I've had a lot of past lives where I've spoken my truth and used my gifts to help people, and it like backfired on me. so, so I feel it, man. Like showing up on here, sharing my stuff, being vulnerable. I'm gonna cry just talking about it right now. Like it triggers something very deep within me, but I'm gonna keep showing up. I'm gonna keep on being more vulnerable. I'm gonna keep on sharing my stuff until it doesn't feel hard to do it, until I can just be a human sharing my human experience with other humans and not feel any kind of weird way about it. And I feel like the reason we feel a weird way about it is because people judge us and like, oh my God, all the flack that like the Kardashians get, and all their stuff is out there. So of course you're going to judge them. You have lots of ammo. I'm not saying that like you're judging them, but you know what I mean. It's like they're open to judgment. But I feel like that's this idea that we have in our society like, oh, you put yourself out there, you're opening yourself up to like ridicule and judgment. No, no, nope, no. I'm not on board with that. I don't subscribe to that being the reality. I think that being vulnerable is beautiful, and I'm so inspired when I see other people do it. And so I'm hoping that me doing it and me facing that fear will also help to inspire somebody else and show them that it's okay. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. I spent all this time on my makeup. Sometimes I get on these podcast episodes looking homeless, and I was like, not today. No, I'm over it. Anyway, if you're not watching this, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But I feel like today I look very demure. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna step off my soapbox and get back onto my podcast box. So in this episode, we're gonna go deep. This is going to be a really real, vulnerable conversation about the mother wound, what it is, how it happens, and how we can begin to heal it. I will be sharing some of my own experiences because I think it's so important to be transparent about this stuff. Healing is not a straight line. We do not have to pretend we've got it all figured out. And I'm tired of that. I'm so tired of it. That was part of the thing that was making it really hard for me to be vulnerable and show up, you know, with without trying to feel like I have to put on this act or be this character. And I have this thing where I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't show up if I'm not being bubbly and happy and excited because that's what people want. That's what makes people feel good. And so when I'm not in a good mood, which is often, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. I have a lot of inner rage. I have a lot of anger that is stored. I'm a very angry person, which feels weird to say because I don't express my anger very openly or often, but I have a ton of rage. I just got a healing reading and from Jerry, Star Magic Healing, from Jerry Sargent. And he, he sends you a 15-minute recording when he does your healing sessions. Or mine was about 15 minutes. I don't know how long everybody's is, but he sent me a recording from when he was doing it. And I will talk about all that in another episode, but he was like, you have a ton of rage and a ton of anger against the masculine because of all the shit that's happened to you through past lifetimes and in your current life. And I was like, yeah, 100%. Nail on the head, Jerry. Thank you for that. And I've been so contemplative and introspection ever since then because I'm like, I need to heal my mother wound. And then Jerry pops up on this recording a couple days ago and he's like, yeah, masculine wounding. And I'm like, ah, of course, of course. As I'm about to heal, I feel like so many things I'm like, I will open a door in my life. I'm like, ooh, this thing needs some attention. I will open that door and then it's like I have, oh, if you guys watch Friends, Monica, one of the characters, has this closet. Monica is this OCD neat freak who is just like super competitive. She's always on point. She always has her crap together. And she has this closet. She's a neat freak. Everybody knows she's an OCD neat freak. And she has this messy closet where like you can't open the door or just crap will start tumbling out of there. And I feel like that's how I've been experiencing my healing journey lately is I will open the door to get one thing out, but then like all 400 things in that closet start like just tumbling out. And so I think it's kind of funny that I was like, yeah, I want to heal my mother wound. I'm going to start working on that. And then the universe is like, actually, you need to work on the masculine wounding too, because you've got a lot of rage. Like, cool, 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 cool. So I will also be doing that. I'll probably do an episode on that too, because y'all know I love to talk about stuff. Okay. So anyway, where was I? Being transparent. Oh yeah, I always feel like I have to have everything figured out, and it was making it hard to show up because I was like, I'm still healing this. I'm still working on this. I don't feel good today. And like, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm a human, and I don't want to portray the image that like I always have it together and I'm always great and I'm just here living my best life and running my business. Like, going through a lot of stuff. I'm learning a lot of things. I have a lot of days where I'm just like, I don't talk to my friends. I don't leave my apartment because I am so overstimulated and I just want to hide. And I want to share that stuff because I know I'm not the only one going through it. So, yeah, I'm going to really try to show the real me. I'm probably going to be crying a lot more. And that's another thing is like I've seen so many people talk crap about people who like get on social media and cry, but sometimes you're talking about stuff and then you're crying, or you just want to show your experience and that you are a human and that you cry when things happen and you're not always smiley. Like, but now I have it in my head where people are like, "Oh, well, you had to like have the whole forethought of like getting your phone. So were you really crying or were you putting on a show because you want sympathy from the audience?" Like, oh my God, there's just so much stuff out there. And I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm over it, man. All right. So by the end of this episode, if we ever get there, by the end of this episode, I will also have a free resource for you. It's a workbook with journal prompts and tips to help you on your own healing journey where the mother wound is concerned. And for those of you who feel like this is something that you want to go even deeper with, I'm also going to be talking about how my emotion code energy healing sessions can support you through this process. I've found that so much of this emotional weight gets trapped in our bodies, and clearing that energy can be such a powerful step forward in your healing. And I've been using the emotion code to help me to release um, emotions that I've stored around my mother wound and for some other things right now. And I'm about to do a session today to start releasing some of that rage and anger, because it's one thing to process things in your mind, but you also have a body where you store energy and trauma. And so you also have to be able to release it from your energy field in your body. So even if you're in therapy and you're working through things, make sure you're releasing stuff through from your energy field as well. And you can do that with the emotion code. And I think I'm going to have an emotion code sale this week or next week, just to bring some more attention to it, because I don't talk about it enough and it's wildly helpful. Okay, so what is the mother wound? So let's talk about what exactly the mother wound is, because I know it can sound a little heavy or intense at first. I certainly avoided it because I was like, oh, the mother wound? That sounds like something, and I don't want to deal with it right now. I'm already dealing with other things. But it's not as wild as it sounds. I was already dealing with the mother wound by by healing some other things that we're going to get into, things that stem from the mother wound I've been working on. And I was like, oh, so I've actually been working on the mother wound. I didn't know it. And that's how it goes. So anyway, the mother wound refers to the emotional pain or trauma that we carry as a result of our relationship with our moms or with any primary caregiver, honestly. And it's those deep-rooted beliefs or feelings that we internalize from childhood, whether it's the way that we were nurtured or not nurtured, the expectations placed on us, or even the unspoken emotional patterns that we picked up just by watching the way that our parents were showing up in the world, showing up in their relationships, showing up or not showing up for themselves. But okay. So this is really important. Their mother wound is not about blaming our moms. I'm not blaming my mom. I'm not trying to be like, there's so much wrong with you, and now look what you've done to me. That's not the point. It's not about saying that they did something wrong or pointing fingers. Our moms and their mothers before them were often navigating their own stuff, their own traumas, and sometimes that pain gets passed down. I actually did an emotion code session for myself, and I've done a couple for other people where we're just clearing ancestral trauma. You can come for that too. You could just be like, I just want to let go of ancestral trauma. And then you release a bunch of inherited trapped emotions that you've inherited through your family line. It's wild. Um, those can be some very emotional, very cathartic sessions. I'm saying a lot because I'm pausing. I try very hard not to use the filler words like I do say so a lot also. And okay, I was about to say it. Just going to pause. We're going to get back into it. So when this stuff, these energies, these patterns, these beliefs, the pain, the traumas, when they get passed down to us through our family lines, genetically, generationally, it can show up as unmet emotional needs. It can show up as generational trauma. It can also show up as subconscious patterns that keep repeating over and over and over until we become aware of them and then start healing them. And that is the key. It's the awareness. Recognizing that we've been carrying these things is not about placing blame. It's about understanding that we can break these cycles and we can heal and release what is no longer serving us. We just have to be aware of it. We have to make the choice that we want to look at these things. And the reason that this matters so much, the reason the mother wound matters, is because the mother wound has such a deep impact on our self-worth, on our relationships, and just on our overall emotional well-being. And a lot of us are walking around feeling like we're not enough, like we need to be perfect, or we need to constantly please other people just to feel worthy. Does that sound familiar? I know that was a huge realization for me. I thought people pleasing was just a people pleasing thing. I thought it was my Libra moon. You know what I mean? Like that's a big thing for us. Libra moons out there. Shout out to all my people pleasers. If you're dysfunctional, you can be a Libra moon and not be a people pleaser. Um, yeah, well, it's big for me. Had no idea that I got some of that from my mom, potentially a lot of it. I'm having a hard time journaling about the people pleasing part. We will get there. So we start to notice patterns like perfectionism, the need to over deliver, to do everything perfectly. And then if we don't, we feel like we've failed. Or maybe it shows up as people pleasing and constantly putting everybody else's needs before our own, because somewhere along the way, we learned that being loved meant being of service to others, even to our own detriment. And then there's the deep sense of unworthiness, like no matter what you do, it's just never quite good enough. And I'm speaking about all of this because all of this applies to me. That's why I'm talking about it. I'm not just pulling it out of thin air. I'm not just like rattling things off. Like all of these things are things that are part of my mother wound. So, and they are common parts of the mother wound. I just resonate with every single one of them, which, yay, winning the mother wound contest. That competitiveness rearing its head. The Aries competitiveness. That junk is my toxic trait. I will tell you right now, sidebar. Something new and different for me. So I used to wear a Fitbit. I often will not wear a watch. I go into periods where I do wear a watch, but I often will not wear a watch because I get really, really neurotic and really competitive. And when I used to wear a Fitbit, you know how you could do step challenges? And this was years ago in like the 2000 teens, like 2016, 2017. And I would challenge my friends or sister, they would challenge me and like, don't challenge me in a Fitbit challenge because I'm not just going for 10,000 steps. If you challenge me, I will get 30,000 in a day and I will make it happen because I need to win. That's toxic trait. Okay. So back to the regularly scheduled programming. Um, okay. So the not quite good enough. And that is the wound. It's keeping, it's this energy that keeps us stuck in this loop of not feeling good enough and needing that external validation and being afraid to ask for what we really need because we've been conditioned to put ourselves last. And so it's super uncomfortable and super scary to ask for what you need because then you feel needy and like you're burdening somebody. But you being able to ask for what you need is you communicating well. Like it's important to be able to communicate your needs because people are not mind readers. It's important to speak up. It's also important to just understand what you need. I am now a recovering people pleaser, but I was so deep into people pleasing in every aspect that it was only this year, 2024, I'm 39. It is only this year that I realized, oh, I should probably figure out what I need and want out of a relationship. What? I'm sorry, Ashley, you didn't know what your needs were? How do you know you were getting your needs met? Oh, you weren't because you didn't know what to ask for. Cool. I mean, I was getting some of them met. My boyfriend is absolutely amazing. Best relationship I've ever had. But what I mean is that as I was having all these relationship conversations with him, I didn't know that part of the reason that I was so insecure about asking for what I needed was because I was so focused on his needs. What are your needs? How can I meet your needs? How can I show up better for you in our relationship? Heaven forbid I ask for anything because I don't want to be high maintenance. Like, what? Stop. Stop it. So I stopped all that. That is not a thing anymore. I made a list of my needs and I started understanding like I have so many books right now, like non-violent communication, attachment types. Like I'm obsessed um with just being a better person. Honestly, showing up for myself and my relationships and just learning more about how to have a healthy relationship, learning more about healthy communication, learning more about boundaries, learning more about like, oh, I friggin' love personal development. Okay. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So yeah, all the sidebars today. I should have just done a catch-up episode, but whatever. We're here. I'm doing the mother wound one. That's what I planned. That's what I'm doing. I will probably end up doing a catch-up episode next week, but we will see. So, yeah, the loop of not feeling good enough, of needing external validation, of being afraid to ask for what we really need because we've been conditioned to put ourselves last, and so it feels weird to ask for what we need and like it's wrong. But here's the thing. Healing the mother wound isn't about just healing the past. It's about reclaiming your worth and letting go of these old beliefs and learning to nurture yourselves in the ways that you were not taught. You know how hard it was for me to do self-love and self-care? I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what does that even look like? Can I get an example of a full day of self-care? And I'm happy to report that I've started actually taking self-care seriously. I think it has taken me all year to really, really really implement it. Like yesterday, I had the best day. It was amazing. My boyfriend watched Rocket all day, and I got to just sit on the balcony and listen to birds chirping while I read. I painted for hours. I watched, I don't know, stuff on TV. I watched an interview with Bashar, which I'm going to talk about. It was so good. Not Bashar, Daryl Anka. He's the channel for Bashar. I just, yeah, I just did stuff I felt like doing. And it was all creative stuff that really like fed my soul. And it was amazing. And I was like, this is self-care. My boyfriend even cleaned the bathtub. He was going to run me a bath. And then I didn't feel like doing that. But it was an amazing day. And I was like, this is it. How was I not making the time? It was weird. It was like I had this weird mechanism in me that was like I was a robot and I would want to go and do self-care stuff. And something in my brain was like, nope, you should actually be working. Or nope, you should actually do chores. Or nope, maybe you should just watch some Netflix. Like it was weird. And I've been doing all this healing stuff lately. I've been letting a lot of stuff go. And I feel like I finally released whatever was keeping me stuck in this, like, no, I need to do, go, go, go cycle. And now I'm like, oh, actually, self-care comes first. That is what I'm prioritizing. And if I don't get my self-care in, then screw all the other stuff. That's where that's my new era that I'm in. It feels so good. I love it. The weekend era of self-care. Anyway. So yeah, reclaiming your worth, letting go of old beliefs that are not serving you, and learning to nurture yourself in ways you weren't taught to. Healing the inner child, if you will. So how and why does the mother wound happen? The mother wound can happen in so many different ways. And what's interesting is that it's not always obvious. It can show up through emotional neglect. Maybe you grew up feeling like your feelings didn't matter or they weren't fully validated. My mom was very emotionally unavailable because she had so much trauma, but she knew so much about child psychology that like it was like a mind fuck for me because it felt like she was showing up for me. Like I could talk to her and she took me to counseling when things happened, but I didn't get the modeling of like how to feel your feelings, what it's like to express your feelings. My mom would often, she tried to get us to bypass our negative feelings. She'd be like, "Oh, you're not feeling good. Like feel better. Think about something more positive." Um, and so I didn't learn that negative emotions were okay. I didn't learn to process them. And so that was emotional neglect. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was emotionally unavailable and attracted to emotionally unavailable people because I grew up with emotionally unavailable parents. Had no idea. So yeah, the mother wound can show up through emotional neglect, um, not being validated or not feeling like your feelings were fully validated. Or the mother wound can come from an overbearing parent where maybe your mother was always so deeply involved that you never really felt like you had the space to figure out who you were outside of your parent or your relationship with them. And then there's the generational aspect. Excuse me. This is where it really gets deep. So sometimes we're carrying unresolved trauma from generations before us, and we don't even realize that we're doing it or that it's been passed down to us like genetically, essentially. I think that I grew up feeling like my feelings didn't matter, honestly. And that's why I wasn't connected to them because I was like, they don't matter. I'm just going to be logical. I'm smart. I'll just use my brain for everything. And then I started relying on my brain and completely ignoring my emotions and just stuffing them down and storing those junks like freaking fat cells. Jesus. So it took me until I was in my early 30s and going through a divorce to realize that my mom had been emotionally unavailable my whole life. I didn't realize it. I started having some conversations with my ex-husband about some of the sexual abuse when I was a kid, and then he started asking me some questions about like where my mom was and what she did and things like that. And he asked me questions that other people had never asked me before. I didn't talk to a lot of people about it. I never really opened up about it because I was so ashamed. And I'm really proud of myself because I feel like I've mentioned it a few times here and there, but I haven't actually unpacked it myself. So I'm not going to go into it until I start unpacking it myself. But I can mention that it happened, that it's there. It used to be a super secret. Like I was like, I can't let anyone know this happened to me because it makes me gross. Like, nope, stop. No, it doesn't. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm great. So yeah, I didn't find out my mom was emotionally unavailable my whole life until my 30s. And it was such a wild realization because I remember her being such an amazing teacher and so well versed in child psychology, like I mentioned. And when I was a child, I told my mom that I was being molested, and she immediately took me to a doctor. And then I was in therapy. So it always felt like she was emotionally supporting and nurturing me. But as I've been healing this wound, I've been able to open my perspective and a lot. I've been able to open my perspective a lot and see things from multiple angles. And she definitely did the best that she could. And she had a lot of trauma, and her mom wasn't the best role model for what a parent should be. So my mom was really flying blind, as many parents, as all parents do. I think you don't know what you're doing until you're doing it. And and I say that as someone who's not a parent, but that is just my perspective as a non-parent person. Um, I know it's a hard job. It seems like a difficult job. I don't want it. I'm team no kids. I've never wanted to be a parent, and I still don't want to be a parent. I don't think I'm ever going to change my mind. But I love that other people are so into it and doing a wonderful job and want to be better at it and are like sharing. I love hearing about parenting stuff, which is weird. But anyway, probably because it's psychology and I love anything psychology related. So anyway, my mom suppressed and bypassed her trauma so much that I didn't get taught how to process mine. And so I was in my 30s before I started exploring my emotional capacity. And the only emotions that I could get in touch with or recognize were anger, sadness, neutrality, and occasional joy. But I don't even know if it was real joy. It might have just been like contentment. Like, oh, this is cool. Um, and it was really difficult for me to connect with how I was feeling. I remember as an adult, after doing a lot of this work and going to therapy for years, I started showing up differently in my relationship with my mom. And oh my God, you would have thought that I was like physically abusing her. And I feel like she actually did say that I was abusing her at some points. And I was like, you need to chill out. Let's all chill and stop it. So my mom, she was just not having it, man. And she took it really personally that I was changing my values, that I was changing my behaviors, that my reactions were changing, and that I was trying to set boundaries. Uh, my God. It was a roller coaster and such a painful time for me. I felt so unworthy. I was so depressed. I felt really lonely. Despite having friends, despite having a partner, I had my ex-husband. And he was great at giving me advice and like listening. And this was just all happening as I was going through a divorce, and my life just felt like it was imploding. And I kept trying to initiate conversations to get her to explore some of these things with me, but she just couldn't go there. And I don't know if she even wanted to, honestly, but I know for sure that she didn't have the capacity or the tools to do it. She'd been avoiding it her whole life. And then I think watching me doing it was really triggering because she was like, oh no, like what's going to come up when you're doing it? She adamantly told me, she's like, I will not go to counseling with you. And I was like, I'm not going to ask you to. I know your standpoint. You don't want me to go to counseling, which I thought was so wild. So anyway, one of the biggest causes of the mother wound is when a mother's own unhealed wounds get projected onto the child. And it's not that she wanted to hurt you, but her own pain, whether from her childhood, from society, like societal pressures, expectations she placed on herself, her own pain ended up spilling over into the way that she raised you. And I think we've all seen this in some way, right? Like maybe your mom struggled with self-worth and that showed up in how she encouraged or didn't encourage you. Or maybe she had her own deep fears and anxieties that unintentionally got passed down to you. I remember growing up, my mom would always talk about how fat she was, and she would specifically say she looked like a beached whale. And my mom was super athletic. She was not fat. She was rarely even a little bit overweight. She grew up on a farm, so she had that dad strength. You know what I'm talking about? Like that superhero strength. Where you're like, how did you just do that? You are crazy strong. Something that I feel like farm people have, or farmers. Farm people? What am I doing? People who grow up on farms, people who farm, strong, just crazy strong, very functional strength. And she was freaking strong. And she was an athlete on top of that. She was a distance runner. She rode horses. She worked out. She swam. She did all kinds of stuff. Like she was always really active. She was such a big health nut, and I just wanted to be like her. I thought she was so beautiful and so perfect. And so when she'd make those comments about herself, I internalized them too. I was a tiny child. I remember her making those comments when I was like tiny, like first grade, kindergarten tiny. And then as I got older, I remember being a teen and her making seemingly not malicious comments about me and my sister. And like I always had body image issues. Like I always wanted to be thinner or thin. And I always I felt like I was fat and I had some really weird behaviors around it. And it was more like, let me see. Yeah, so she would make comments. They didn't seem super wild or like super rude at the time, at least not the ones that were directed toward me. My sister wasn't as OCD about me. She really loved food, and I was just like, I'm gonna work out all the time. And my sister is just way more laid back. She's like the chiller version of the two of us. And yeah, so like I'd be wearing shorts in my 20s. My mom would make a comment about my cellulite, and she would make it like a huge deal. Um, Not my cellulite, but she would make body image a huge deal. Like she would make it a huge deal that she wouldn't want to be caught dead in a bathing suit in public, and she would rarely get into the water with us at the beach or the pool because she would make it a point to be like, no, I can't be seen in public in a bathing suit. And we'd be like, that's stupid, but okay, whatever, we're gonna go play. But those ideas, those thoughts, those behaviors just slithered their way into my consciousness, and then I adopted them too without realizing it. Plus, I had society coming at me. Oh my God, the 90s, where everybody was like super, super skinny. Everybody just needs to be really skinny, and let's all wear super low cut jeans to show off our skinniness. I don't know. It was honestly a good look. I love low cut jeans. Everything's all high waisted now. Actually, I think low cut is coming back. I think low cut baggy jeans are the thing to do now. Anyway, so as if it's not enough to get it from our moms, we get it from society too. Society puts so much pressure on women and mothers to be perfect, to sacrifice their own needs for their families. Mothers are expected to be these endless sources of love and care and support, but heaven forbid you need any room for your own humanity or struggles. Like, these are the messages that society sends. Maybe that's why I'm team no kids, because I was like, I am stressed out enough dealing with my stuff. I cannot with tiny humans. But moms, it really seems like moms are expected to like have it all together, and that idea just gets passed down to their kids. And even if logically you're like, no, that's ridiculous, it can make you feel like you have to be perfect when you are hearing and seeing that message being portrayed all the time, like you're responsible for everybody else's happiness or that your needs aren't as important. And that's where the wound gets even deeper, because not only are you picking up on your mom's emotional struggles, but then you're also absorbing society's unrealistic expectations through the media, through other people's conversations, through school, through jobs. Like, it's just everywhere. And I feel like a lot of us take on other people's burdens. This is especially common with mothers and daughters, or mothers and children, but I'm specifically going to talk about mothers and daughters in this instance because that is my experience. So, where a daughter will sense her mother's suffering at a young age and choose to take some of that in an effort to be there for them. Like, I did that. And I didn't know that I did it. And I was happy to do it. Like, as a really young kid, and I got this message in a reading, when in a couple, I think, actually. It was really validating because I knew it as soon as it came through. I was like, yeah, holy crap. Like, I almost remember the feeling of like, let me help you, mom. I know you're burdened. I know you have a lot of stuff. I don't want you to be unhappy or sad. Let me hold some of that emotional bullshit for you. Like, I remember feeling that as a kid and just wanting to do anything I could to help her, to make her safe, to make her happy, to protect her. Like, I took on that role. I was like, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to protect my little sister, and I'm going to protect you. And I definitely made some kind of agreement with her at a very young age that I would take on some of her stuff, as much of it as I could. And it created some solar plexus stuff for me, some solar plexus heaviness and blocks. And you know what? The bullshit part about that is all my mom did with the extra space that she had when I was taking on this stuff for her to try to help her feel better, was all she did was just store more trauma in the empty spots. So I was over here trying to lighten her load, and she was like, "Oop, I got some spare room. Let me just shove these unresolved emotions right into this little available crevice." Anyway, though, so who gets the mother wound? Who does it happen to? The mother wound can happen to anybody. You don't have to be a daughter. Just if you have a mom, you can have a mother wound. So I really want to emphasize that it's not something that just women experience. It does seem like it tends to hit women particularly hard because of how we as a society frame femininity and motherhood, but it can absolutely hit men too. I know a lot of men that have mother wounding, and maybe I can do an episode about that too, for, for us who have sons and brothers and partners and male friends. Um, so anyway, so from a young age, we're told to be good girls, to put others first, to be nurturing, and to essentially just sacrifice our own needs. And if you grew up seeing that from your mom, watching her put herself last, or seeing her battle with perfectionism or self-worth issues, check, check, and check for me, then you might have internalized those same patterns without even realizing it. Yes, yes, I did. Thank you. I feel very seen in this moment. So we just absorb things, especially as kids, because kids are friggin' sponges. And I know for me, there was a specific moment when I realized how deeply this wound was showing up. I was feeling like I was constantly bending over backward for other people, whether it was in work and relationships or just my day-to-day life. And I had this underlying belief that I just was not enough unless I was doing enough. But I could just never do enough either. It was just like this never-ending freaking hamster wheel that I was on. And I would just run faster and I would get more exhausted and more resentful and run faster. And that belief did not come from nowhere. The whole like I'm not doing enough, and if I will be good enough when I'm doing enough, but I can never do enough. That didn't come out of nowhere. It was something I picked up from watching my mom struggle with the same freaking thing, feeling like she had to prove herself through overworking, being super dedicated all the time, always going above and beyond through self-sacrifice. And she wore it like a badge of honor. And I was like, I just want to be like her. Like, I was like, I want to be it. Well, I didn't want to be a mom, so I didn't want to be a single mom, but I was like, I want to be a strong, independent woman. I don't need anybody. I don't ever want to get married. Watching my mom's relationship with Alan, my dad, like, ugh, I was like, I don't know why anybody would do that. Never wanted to get married. I did get married. That is a topic for another episode, my reasoning for why I got married. But anyway, so I watched my mom go through these cycles, and it's this endless cycle of feeling like you're never enough. And that's the core of the mother wound, self-worth. And it's so prevalent, like the feeling of being unworthy, having low self-worth, like having self-worth issues, such a common pain point for so many of us, so many of us. And so, when does the mother wound happen? Exactly. So, the mother wound can begin in childhood, but the thing is, it does not stay there. It's not something that you just grow out of. Actually, it's something you kind of grow into because if you don't catch that junk, it just kind of like gets out of control and turns into these huge patterns impacting your life. It follows you. The mother wound starts in childhood, or it can begin in childhood, and then it follows you into adulthood, and then consequently affects how we view ourselves, how we're showing up in relationships, and even how we parent if we become parents ourselves. And so think about how we internalize our early experiences. If you were made to feel like your feelings didn't matter or that you had to be perfect to be loved, that doesn't just go away when you turn 18. It becomes part of who you are. It's woven into your identity as it's forming, like as your identity is forming. And so then as an adult, you might struggle with self-worth or feeling like you have to work so hard just to prove that you deserve success or love. Over here, raising my hand. And this is exactly what I went through, like, or I am going through. Didn't go through, I am going through it. This feeling of just never quite being enough. I've healed a lot of it, but I still feel that. I recognize it more readily now, and so I'm able to be like, and I can give myself a pep talk and use an affirmation and dispel that negative belief in the background. But this feeling of just never really being enough, of needing to hustle and prove my worth and everything I do, I feel guilty about resting. I told my sister that. She was like, "What? That doesn't even make sense." I feel guilty about resting, so I rationalize why I should be and need to be working all the time. And then, if I do sit down and try to relax, I will get up shortly after and start finding chores that I can do. And it's been something I've really been unlearning lately, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, how to rest and just do nothing and to feel good about spending time doing nothing or feel good about spending time doing something that I enjoy that isn't productive or educational because burnout is so real. And earlier this year, I was so burnt out between the grief and then my tech job and the business. I had to take family medical leave for 3 months because I went into brain freeze. I was no longer in fight or flight. I was in freeze mode because my body and my brain, everything was like, stop. They were like, we're not doing this anymore. We're on strike. And it's horrible. I couldn't do my job. Like, I need logic, I need reasoning to be a software engineer, and I couldn't do it. It was so humbling and so eye-opening because I mean, I'd been feeling burnout for a while and ignoring it. And it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it. It was embarrassing, it was painful. I needed the time off, and it was so helpful. Ugh, don't let yourself get there. Don't let yourself get to that point of burnout. So anyway, I definitely am healing my self-worth and healing the belief that I have to work super hard and sacrifice to be successful or to be worthy of love. And I do it in every capacity. And it got to a point where after my mom passed, I just couldn't keep white knuckling my way through these patterns that were just not serving me. And the way it all started impacting me emotionally and in my relationships, especially after I stepped onto the spiritual path and I started doing shadow work and recognizing these patterns and behaviors and becoming more aware of my thoughts and beliefs and how they were manifesting through my choices. And I was like, oh no, we are not doing this. Absolutely not. It's like I just got this breakthrough where I got to the point where I was like, I'm putting my foot down. And I was like, nope, not today, Satan. I'm not doing it. So remember how I said that recognizing some of these patterns and focusing on releasing them, like people pleasing, fear of rejection, not feeling worthy, these stem from a mother wound, at least for me. And it can even impact how we approach caregiving. So if you've internalized the idea that being a good woman or being a good mother means sacrificing yourself, then you might start to model the same behavior when it's your turn to parent or nurture others, like in a romantic relationship. I feel like I had to take on the role of being my mom's mother because I didn't trust her to take care of herself. And so then in my romantic relationships, I also bring in this mothering energy, which is not serving anybody. And it does not feel sexy. It does not feel good. Like, you do not want to mother your boyfriend or your husband or your partner. It's not the vibe. Ugh, yeah. And this wound just keeps cycling generation after generation after generation until we stop it and say, wait, this doesn't serve me anymore. And that's where the healing begins. And that is where we are today. That's the work that my sister and I are doing, and I'm sure many of you are too, which is why I felt like this was an awesome subject to bring onto the podcast. We all go through similar stuff, so let's support each other and let's go through it together. I don't ever want anyone to feel like they have to go through something alone or like they don't have somebody in their corner. So, how do you begin healing the mother wound? So, the first step in healing the mother wound, like with any other type of healing, is awareness. And it might sound really simple, but it actually is pretty powerful. So, we can't heal what we don't recognize, right? So, becoming aware of the patterns and the beliefs that you've been holding on to, often subconsciously, is the first step toward releasing them. So, for example, do you feel like you have to overwork to prove your value, maybe? Or maybe you feel like you always need to be on and doing something productive just so you can feel worthy. Maybe you don't realize you're doing that so that you can feel worthy. I certainly didn't. I was like, I'm being efficient. I'm just being productive. I like to go. I have so much energy. Because I do. Manifesting generator. I can just go until I can't. Um, and I'm just gonna put all my dirty laundry out there. This is me. I feel like I have to overwork to prove my value, and I feel like I always need to be on and doing something productive to feel worthy. Naked me, just naked for the world to see in my vulnerability. That was me. That's how I feel. Something I'm working through. So if that's not you, if you don't resonate with those things, the whole like overworking to feel worthy or always needing to be productive and on in order to feel worthy. Maybe you have a fear of expressing your needs because deep down you've internalized the belief that asking for help is selfish, or that your needs aren't as important as others' needs, or that you're just going to be a burden. And that you can take care of most of your needs yourself, so you're just not going to trouble anyone else with them. These are really common patterns that stem from the mother wound, which I was not aware of. I thought these were all just their own wounds, you know? So it actually is a bit of a relief to know that they're from one common denominator, the mother wound. Yay. It's kind of comforting, honestly, because then I don't have this huge list of junk that I need to let go of. You know what I mean? It feels more manageable. No? Just me? Cool, cool, cool. So anyway, once you start recognizing these patterns, whether it's perfectionism, people pleasing, constantly putting yourself last, whatever it is, once you start increasing your awareness, you can begin to see how these patterns have shaped your life. And the thing is that these patterns are often passed down from generation to generation. But just because you've carried them does not mean that you have to keep carrying them. Awareness gives you the power to start choosing differently so you can let go of things that you don't need to carry anymore. Okay, so the next part is huge. Self-compassion, my favorite. And I'll be honest, this is something I've had to really lean into on my own journey. When you start digging into your wounds, especially something as deep as the mother wound, a lot of emotions can come up. And they do. They will and they do. Guilt, shame, anger, sadness, resentment. And it's easy to get stuck in this loop of blaming yourself or feeling resentment toward your mother or caregivers. Like, why didn't you just do a better job? Look at all the shit I have to deal with now. That was me. That was me at first. I was like, F you for not dealing with your crap. Because look what I have to deal with now. And that's why I didn't want to have kids for a long time. It's no longer my reason for not wanting to have kids. But I was like, I don't want to pass my crap on to them like my mom did to me. That was my reason most of my life, 90%, 95% of my life. That was my reason. So what I'm learning is that self-compassion is everything. Self-compassion is the thing. You have to give yourself permission to feel all of the emotions without judgment and forgive yourself for carrying the wounds in the first place. You are not responsible for the pain or patterns that you inherited, and you do have the power to heal them. Now, you do have a choice. You always have a choice. So be gentle with yourself. This is very deep work, and it requires a lot of kindness, patience, and understanding. I can be so hard on myself. So self-compassion is always something I'm trying to incorporate more of every single day. It's a challenge, but I'm doing better. Like I said, this weekend has been absolutely amazing. I just added a D on the end of Ben. I said bend. This weekend has been absolutely amazing. I feel like I'm speaking quieter than I normally do. I'm in a very gentle mood. I'm really embracing my femininity today. I have a dress on. Feels nice. I wanted to wear more dresses. I haven't been. Now I am. All right. I love the off the shoulder look. I just feel like it's very like so feminine, especially some collarbones. Did like a weird pose to get the collarbones to stick out more. Super metal pose. Okay. On to generational trauma. So another layer to the mother wound healing journey is generational trauma. And this is where things start to make sense on an even deeper level. So when you look at your mother's life or your caregiver's life, their struggles, their wounds, it can give you a lot of clarity as to why these patterns exist in the first place. So, for example, maybe your mom grew up in a household where she wasn't emotionally supported, and so she didn't know how to offer that to you. That was my experience personally. She tried her best. And I have great memories of my mom from childhood. And it's hard, honestly, to admit that she didn't emotionally support me in the way that I needed her to, because she was really wonderful in so many other ways. And I kind of bypassed the acknowledgement of her not being wonderful in some of the ways I needed her to be wonderful in by just patching all that up with like, yeah, but she was great. Yeah, but she did this for me. Yeah, but she did this. And so I was just like, I'm just going to avoid any of the other stuff, which meant I didn't have to work on healing it for myself. It was a wonderful way to rationalize why I didn't need to do my own self-work. So maybe your mom was dealing with societal pressure to always be perfect, to be the perfect mom or the perfect wife, which then became something that you absorbed growing up. And so this constant pressure to be enough, to be better, to be the best one, to bend over backwards so that you can win the award for best mom, best wife, best girlfriend. I literally have continued that pattern in my romantic relationships, which has led to me having very poor boundaries in the past. And then my relationship dynamic and then my relationship dynamic ends up being dysfunctional because I've contributed to this precedent of literally doing the most and giving and sacrificing and refusing any offers of help because no, I've got it. You go rest. You're good. Enjoy your life. Let me take care of everything. But then, excuse me, burnout happens and I can't take care of everything. And then I start resenting the fact that I feel alone and like I have to do everything myself. And it's like I've forgotten that that pattern started with me choosing that role. I'm the one that put myself in that position. I'm the one that created that dynamic. Wild. I've been unpacking that for myself this year because I was like, God, I need help. But then every time my boyfriend would offer me help, I'd be like, no, I'm fine. I got it. Independent woman over here. Then it got to the point where I started taking over so many things that he didn't have anything left to do. And then when he did try to jump in and help, I was like, no, I'm fine. I've got it. Like I wore that badge of honor of being able to take care of everything and having everything together and figured out until I was so exhausted that I couldn't do anything. And then I was like, can I have help? And it was weird to try to start fixing that dynamic because it had gotten so skewed and unbalanced that then we were both uncomfortable trying to like rebalance it. So anyway, understanding our mom's pain can be incredibly eye-opening, incredibly uncomfortable, but incredibly eye-opening nonetheless. I just added a T to nonetheless. What is eye-opening nonetheless? No T on the end. Oh my God, I've been talking for an hour. That's probably what it is. It's not. That's not what it is. I don't know what it is. It could be because I've been talking for an hour. I generally don't have to have a hard time talking for an hour, but hey, we're here. It's a new day. So it helps. I think that understanding our mom's pain can help us to see that a lot of the behaviors and beliefs that we are carrying or have been carrying aren't just about us. They were passed down to us. And it can really give you context, which my analytical mind absolutely loves. And it can foster a lot of empathy. But this is so important. Just because you understand where it comes from doesn't mean that you don't still need to set boundaries and prioritize your own healing. And that was another lesson I learned. I became aware of some of these things, and then because I understood my mom's pain, I enabled it, which further perpetuated the mother wound and hurt our relationship. So, lesson learned. It is okay to have compassion for your mom while also recognizing that you need to heal and protect your own emotional space. The two can exist together. Empathy and boundaries are both so essential to this process, and having and maintaining or respecting your own boundaries and then upholding them is self-respect. It's self-love. And it doesn't make you nicer. It doesn't make you sweeter or a better person to betray your own personal boundaries. Um, it doesn't make you a nicer, sweeter, better person to betray your own boundaries to make someone else more comfortable or to avoid conflict, which is something that I have a pattern of. And oh my gosh, it was so hard for me to learn that. The people pleaser in me was just like, no, just let me forget about my boundary this one time. Nope, not doing it. Self-respect, self-love. So after all that work that has gone in to me establishing boundaries, like, no. Oh, I heard a quote. My sister said it to me the other day. She found it on social media. I'm actually going to post it at some point. But it said, make sure your boundaries are stronger than your empathy. Oh, that hit me so hard. I was like, oh, love that. Because my empathy has definitely overridden my boundaries so many times in my life. And I was like, oh, well, I'm being empathetic, so it's okay. No, self-sacrificing and betraying yourself are not ever okay. No, no. Oh, when I first started trying to set boundaries with my mom, I was still married. It was so dramatic. It was so dramatic. Oh my God. And I felt like I was gonna die. I'm laughing now because it's so real. It's so painful. It's so real. Like panic attack level triggered. It was horrible. Yeah, the first time I tried, it did not go well. And then it took me 8 years of continued kind of half-ass trying. And I finally did it about a month and a half before she passed. Oh my God, which was incredibly difficult for me to wrap my head around because I spent so long avoiding setting boundaries with her because I was so worried about stressing her out and being the reason for her death or for her having a stroke. I was like, oh no, I can't set boundaries. What if I stress you out so much that like you die? Pause. And then I set some boundaries with her and I stuck to them despite it feeling like I was the one dying. And boom, 6 weeks later, I get a phone call from the emergency room in California on the other side of the United States. And the inevitable thing, that self-fulfilling prophecy. No, I'm not going to do that. I was kidding, but it's like a dark joke. I shouldn't kid about this. Actually, there is no shouldn't, but I tend to kid about things because, defense mechanism. I like laughing. It feels better. So I'm sidestepping emotions live on a podcast. Welcome. Welcome to the Spirituality with Ashley's show. So anyway, yeah, I was really scared to set boundaries. I was so worried about how it would affect my mom. The people pleasing, it was rationalizing things for me again. Like, no, what about your mom? You can't set boundaries because what about your mom? How's she going to take it? No, boundaries are for me. Boundaries are for you. They're not for other people. And me setting boundaries is not what killed my mom. first of all, pretty sure she chose an exit point. She was very miserable. And I worked a lot on the whole, like, I'm not going to feel guilty about her death thing. I was the best daughter I could be, and I tried my hardest to be a good person and show up in our relationship in a way that, served both of us. I did the best that I could, and I did the best that she could, and I'm really letting go of that guilt. No guilt, no blame. We make our own choices, and sometimes things happen, and it seems like cause and effect, but sometimes it's a different cause that makes that effect. So there's that. Anyway, the guilt and blame took a little while to set in for me. It was not immediate when my mom passed, but man, I've had to do a lot of healing around that situation. I really had to embrace and believe that it is still a good thing to set boundaries and that me setting boundaries was not what caused my mom's passing. And while I have accepted that, it still comes up for me to look at. I'm still unpacking it. I'm still letting it go, especially as we approach the 1 year mark of her passing. A lot is coming up, as I would expect, which is why I'm facing it head on and we are leaning into it. Let go. No more avoidance. We are letting the things go because that is another pattern, man. Me avoiding things. Nope. Putting a stop to that. Less avoidance until no avoidance, trying to extinguish that behavior. So let's talk about some healing modalities, how you can actually begin to heal your mother wound. One of the tools that I personally really, really love is emotion code energy healing. And if you've been following me for a while, you probably know that I use this method a lot because it's so powerful for clearing emotional imprints, emotional energies that are trapped in the body, in your energy field. And so the way the emotion code works is that it helps to release the emotions that have been stored in your energy field, emotions that you may not even realize you're carrying. And this is especially important when it comes to healing the mother wound because so much of this wound is stored as emotional energy in our bodies. Isn't that wild? Think about all the times you felt like you had to be perfect or the moments that you buried your needs to avoid conflict. Those emotions do not just disappear. They get stuck. And over time, they weigh you down. And in some cases, they can even eventually manifest into physical ailments. So, through the emotion code, we can release those trapped emotions. We can clear away the energetic baggage and create more space for healing. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. You get to the core of the pain and release it from your body, which frees you up from all of the burden of like carrying that heavy energy and allowing it to impact your frequency and impact your choices. And when you are able to release that from your energy field, from your body, when you let go of it, the emotion code, when you're using that to release, that's you consciously being like, I'm putting this down. I'm letting it go. I'm not doing this anymore. And it frees you up to step into this more empowered, healed version of yourself, to create more of a clean slate so that you're not reacting based on these old stored emotions that you're not even conscious of. Like, it's wild. Like, you know how I said that I have a lot of stored rage and anger? When I get triggered, my rage, my anger, like they get triggered. And so then I don't just feel a normal reaction. I feel a reaction times 100. Like I fly off, like I see red and I just completely go into this like anger mode. It's wild. And I'm just like, and then it makes me feel bad because I'm like, I don't feel like an angry person. But I have these outbursts because I've so much stored. It takes very little to trigger that emotion that's stored because now that it's stored and it's been stored for so long, it's so much bigger than it originally was. It's so much heavier and stronger. And so anything that pokes it, any similar feeling, like unleashes that anger beast. And it's so uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable for people around me. Let's be honest. So, anyway, when the frequency of the trapped emotion is no longer hanging out in your energy field and disrupting your flow of energy, it's easier to connect with your inner peace and to let go of the charge that's associated with those feelings, kind of like I just described, where like if you're feeling anger and then you get frustrated or something, it can feel like you're having this angry outburst because that stored anger is getting triggered by this other thing that's really not crazy, but it feels like a way bigger deal because it's all of the stuff that's being triggered. It's like a domino effect. And so as you release those trapped emotions and you lessen the charge of those emotions and you clean your energy up, it lessens the feeling of that emotion. It lessens the charge of it. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I'm going to stick with that. Not to the point of you never experiencing that emotion again. You can still experience the emotion again, but it won't impact you so profoundly anymore. And when you feel it, it won't feel so intense because it won't carry the weight that it did. So releasing my anger, releasing my rage using the emotion code means that the next time I get frustrated, the next time I'm in traffic and I get triggered by somebody cutting me off, I'm not going to be a rage monster. I will just feel the frustration in that moment. Like, what the heck? Instead of being like, "Wah!" You know what I mean? Okay. I hope you do. So you can kind of think about it like this. So let's take anger as an emotion. When somebody, I literally, this is what happens when you veer from the script that you wrote for yourself. So let's say somebody cuts you off in traffic and makes you angry, but you're on an important phone call. So you compartmentalize the anger instead of expressing it. You swallow it, essentially. That instance of feeling anger and then not processing it is like dropping a red Skittle into a big old jar. It's just one little Skittle of anger. Giant jar, tiny little anger Skittle. The jar is your emotional and energetic capacity, which impacts your well-being and how you feel, how you move about in your life, in the world. So now let's say that you have anger that's already stored in your body and your energy field as emotional baggage from a few different events throughout your life. If you've already got a few instances of this trapped anger built up in your body and your energy field, then when you experience anger again, like when you get cut off in traffic, for example, instead of it being just this one Skittle dropped into the jar, it's like the jar already is full of red Skittles. And then instead of the anger just being a red Skittle, it gets magnified into this giant red apple that you're trying to stuff into this jar that's already pretty full. And then instead of Yeah. And so then trying to get the red apple into the jar that's already full because you already have all this stored anger, you don't just get to drop it in. And that it's a red apple. It's not a tiny red Skittle anymore because your reactions, when you feel anger, it's not a tiny Skittle since you have so much stored anger. It turns into a bigger deal. So then instead of producing a red Skittle, you produce a red apple. It's way bigger. And then when you try to put the red apple in the jar, like you do with your other anger emotions, it creates a mess because there's just not as much room. And then that instance of anger triggers all the other instances, all the other red Skittles that are already in there. They feel the pressure from you trying to shove the apple into the jar, and then the jar breaks because there's just no more room to keep stuffing things in there. And the jar breaking could be the equivalent of a panic attack, an angry outburst, really bad road rage. Maybe in circumstances, seeing red and doing something else that would put you in prison. Like, I'm just being very extreme. But I mean, the jar breaking is like the you reaching capacity. Like the, yeah, I feel like you get what I'm saying. So when you release trapped emotions with the emotion code, it's like you're emptying the jar and creating room. You're creating a clean slate. You have an open jar and you can just get back to dropping little Skittles in and then taking little Skittles out as you catch the trapped emotions and process or let them go. So when you feel anger, it's just a Skittle. It's a lot easier to manage. I hope that made sense. I hope that made sense. Sometimes my metaphors and analogies are like, what? Just make things up and hope they stick, but whatever. So I know that this work is deep and it's something that we can't just do overnight, but I really do believe that emotion code energy healing is one of the most effective ways to support healing the mother wound. There are a lot of ways, definitely, that you could support it, but because I'm certified in the emotion code and I use it myself, I feel like it's very effective and I love that as a tool for this. And by working on the energetic level, we can clear the deep rooted emotional patterns that have been passed down, and that's where the real freedom comes in. So if this is something that you feel called to explore, I'm offering emotion code sessions that are specifically designed to help with healing the mother wound. So that'll be the focus of the session is healing your mother wound. We'll work together with your subconscious to identify the trapped emotions related to your experiences, and then I'll guide you through releasing them so that you can start to feel lighter, more whole, and more connected to your true self. And if you want to continue doing the emotion code for yourself, you can get the book and learn to do it for yourself. It's actually a really simple, easy process. So wildly, wildly simple. So if you're ready to dive into this healing, you can book an emotion code session on my website, ashleybrickhouse.com. And when you come to the session, just let me know what you want to work on. Or you can let me know you want to work on the mother wound, and I will take it from there. And I just want to be here to support you on your journey. And I really believe that as we heal these wounds, we open up the space for so much more love and worthiness and self-acceptance. And I am reaping the benefits of that. And I would love to help you guys do it too. Like, you don't know what you don't know, man. And there have been so many times where I've looked for support or I've wanted, help or direction with some of these things and don't know where to go. So hopefully this helps give you some of that. Okay. So one of the most powerful tools I've personally leaned into outside of the emotion code is journaling. I've also leaned into the Akashic Records and channeling messages. So combining journaling with your insights from Akashic Records can be so incredibly helpful. Oh my God, it's one of my favorite things to do. I've channeled some really amazing messages, helping me to understand my mom's journey and being able to let go of my attachment to her journey so I can focus on mine. Like, oh my gosh, it's so cathartic. So cathartic. But if you're not accessing your own Akashic records, you can still journal to help you process emotions and gain insights into your own mother wound. And you can always book an Akashic Records, a channeled Akashic Records reading with me, and I can channel some insights for you about your mother wound. That's totally open to you as well. Again, head to my website, just book a channeled Akashic Records reading. For we're live on Zoom together talking, and I'm channeling right in front of you as you're asking questions. So it's like a conversation. Um, anyway, so back to journaling. It's such a simple practice. Love it so much. But the insights and the emotional clarity are just so incredible. So I'm talking about this. I mean, I'm talking about just journaling by itself, by the way. So there's something about getting your thoughts and your feelings down on paper. And I just feel like it helps you process everything in a deeper way, like having a conversation with your soul. Journaling can help you see patterns, explore emotions that you didn't even realize were there, which happens to me a lot. And it can really just help you to start releasing them. Because again, once you acknowledge something, you can let it go. It's also just a safe space where you can be raw and honest and vulnerable without judgment, unless you're judging yourself, which sometimes I will do when I'm journaling. And then I'm like, stop, what are we doing here? It's just you and your truth. It's supposed to be a safe space. And when we're talking about healing something as deep as the mother wound, I feel like journaling can be an incredible tool to guide that inner reflection. And it's helping me to process. Because otherwise, I could just get stuck in a loop in my head. And then I'm like, I'm throwing that back in the little closet and closing the door because I'm overwhelmed. So journaling kind of helps to organize it. It helps to titrate the things so you can address one thing at a time and gain insights and then sit with those and then reflect. Oh my God, I love it so much. There's so many different ways you can journal. So I'm going to share a few journal prompts that have been really helpful for me, and I think they could really support you as you start diving into this work. And these prompts are designed to help you explore your relationship with the mother wound and start releasing these old patterns and beliefs. So I wanted to give you 5 of the prompts I'm using and then a little bit about why I'm using them. So one of them is, what beliefs about myself and my worth do I feel stem from my relationship with my mom? Oh my God, this question was so hard. I haven't even finished answering it yet. It's supposed to help you see the connection between your self-worth and your childhood, your upbringing. And you're just supposed to start writing and see what comes up. Maybe memories, maybe feelings, or things that you've been carrying for years without realizing it. And I think I'm just scared to see what comes up, so I don't want to start writing. When I had this question, I think it was the first one that I journaled about. And I ended up just journaling about the resistance I was feeling to answering the question, which ended up being helpful. Things came out of me talking about journaling about being resistant to it, which was great. So I tried to avoid the question and I actually ended up answering it, which was cool, but I still want to go back and like directly really focus on it and answer it more and get deeper with it. Another question, the second one is, how do you feel when you think about setting boundaries with your mom or maternal figure? What fears or emotions come up around this? Oh man, as I already expressed, setting boundaries can really be uncomfortable, especially if it's not something that you saw modeled growing up. So reflecting on this can really help you to see more about where those fears around boundaries may come up and how they might be showing up in other areas of your life that you didn't realize. Very interesting question. I answered this one because, like I said, I've done a lot of work around the whole boundaries with my mom thing, and it was, oh, so good. The third question is, in what ways have you put others' needs ahead of your own? And where did you learn this pattern? How has it affected your life? This one helped me to see the connection between people pleasing and the mother wound. Think about how often you put yourself last and ignored your needs to make others comfortable. Such a big part of the healing process. So that one wasn't too bad for me. I actually really liked that one. It felt easier to answer. And then the fourth one is what emotions or unmet needs from your childhood are you still holding on to today? And how can you start to meet those needs for yourself? This one was triggering. I was like, I don't want to, because I feel like I'm getting triggered by it because I'm like, oh no, it's me like pointing out what my mom didn't do, but like that's not the point of this. Obviously, some things didn't happen. That's why I'm dealing with a mother wound. Duh. But sometimes the things that we didn't receive in childhood are the things that we need to give ourselves as adults, whether it's love, validation, safety, and journaling about these unmet needs can be a really big step in healing them and starting to cultivate them for and within yourself. So definitely give that one a try. I haven't done this question yet. I have a ton of questions. I have like a month of questions, a month worth of questions, which is in the Healing the Mother Wound workbook. Um, I'm putting it together. It's probably not going to be super fancy because I want to get it up fast so that I can get it to you guys with this episode. I like to put things into pretty ebooks, but I think it might just be a Google Doc because it's really just the questions and then some tips and stuff for, when you feel the resistance and stuff like that. So, fifth question, last one that I'm going to talk about on the podcast today is what can I do to start showing myself the love, care, and nurturing that I may not have received growing up? So it's kind of a piggyback off the last one. The last one is like, what are those things you need to do? And then this fifth question is, how can you start doing them? And I love that. Thinking about ways that you can reparent yourself and offer the love and support that you've probably been craving for a while and just didn't realize that's what was fueling your behaviors or your choices. And how can you start filling your own cup? And I feel like that's a conversation I have with people pretty often is how can you fill your own cup? So anyway, I encourage you to sit with these prompts, take your time, let whatever needs to come up, come up. There is no right or wrong way to do it. Just be honest with yourself and be gentle. And if you're feeling like you need extra support on this journey, don't hesitate to reach out. Journaling is an amazing first step, but sometimes having guidance through emotion code sessions or other readings can help you to dive even deeper into the healing process. And you can even use the mentorship sessions for this to kind of talk through what's going on. I'll tap into your energy psychically. I'll give you any messages that are coming through as we're talking about it. It can be really cathartic to do that as well. So if that's something you're interested in, that is an option. And if you're feeling resistance when it comes to some of these questions, like I absolutely did, then I encourage you to meditate about it or even get an Akashic Records reading or an energy healing session to help you move some of that energy and potentially create some more understanding, which can help you to move forward and start finding some more peace. So I've also been diving into this healing journey via books because I love reading. If I didn't have my background on right now, you'd see the stacks of books behind me because I still haven't gotten a bookshelf. But once, yeah, anyway, so I've been diving into this incredible healing journey. And you know how it goes. Once you start, you find all these resources that just speak to where you're at. And I recently came across two more books. I'm going to talk about three, but I found two that look really interesting that I'm going to add to my little collection. And so the one, I'll do the one that I had already last. Okay, so the first one is Mother Hunger by Kelly McDaniel. Apparently, this book, and I ordered all of these, so I have them all. I'm going to read them, so I will be talking about them. So Mother Hunger explores how our early relationships with our mothers affect our adult relationships and our emotional health. And from what I heard, it really digs into that core need for love and care and nurturing and how not getting those needs met can show up in different areas of our lives, especially in our relationships as an adult. And I haven't read it yet, but just the concept felt really, really relevant to the mother wound healing that I'm doing. So I will keep you posted once I start reading it. The second book I found is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay C. Gibson. And this one is about understanding emotional immaturity and how it impacts us as children and adults. And it gives some really insightful tools to help identify these patterns and start healing from them. Again, I have not started it yet, but it is on my list, and I'm really curious to see how it connects with the mother wound work that I'm doing or that we're doing, all of us. And finally, there's It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, which I actually own and I have started reading. And by started reading, I mean it is on top of my pile because that is what I'm going to start reading next. on top of the pile means I basically already opened it and reading it. That's just, we need to be on the same page with my vocabulary. So I've had this book since last year. Um, Lorena Espiga, who I mention often, one of the two sisters I'm always talking about, she recommended it to me because when we were talking about family constellations, she was like, this book will help you to kind of understand. Um, so the book It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, it's about generational trauma and how patterns get passed down through families. It is very eye-opening, I am sure. Um, and I'm hoping that it's going to help me to understand how deeply ingrained some of these wounds can be. I'm all about some ancestral trauma and stuff, like not about it, but like releasing it, healing it. Yeah, so I'm really excited to start reading this. I'm going to start reading this book next. And if you're interested in diving into the generational aspects of the mother wound, then it might be for you too. I will let you know how it goes while I'm reading it. So, um, now, if you are feeling ready to dive into the healing work of the mother wound with me, I created something special for you guys. I put together a free workbook that is designed to support you on your journey of healing the mother wound, and it's filled with journal prompts. It's got emotional check-ins, free like questions for you to ask yourself to check in with yourself, and then it's got some practical tips to help guide you through the process in a really grounded way. So it's got journal prompts, emotional check-ins, tips for boundaries and self-compassion, and then a section for tracking your progress. So questions to kind of like keep you accountable and again, check in with yourself. It's totally free. I designed it to be something that you can work through at your own pace because healing takes time and there is no rush, and we are all on our own individual healing journeys. So the goal here is to give you tools to start, and then you can revisit it as often as you need to. And if you want to download the workbook, you just have to head to the link in the show notes, or make a copy of it in your Google Drive. Or you can DM me on Instagram and I'll send it to you. Okay, so um, what else? Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. This is the longest episode I've ever done. Love that. It's okay if you feel like this is really big, and if you're on this journey, if you have been thinking about healing the mother wound, it can be overwhelming just to even consider unpacking it. So no pressure. Maybe just listening to this episode put it on your radar, and that's totally fine. If you are ready to start diving into it, I'm happy to have you on this journey with me. Don't forget about the free workbook. And yeah, don't forget, if you need support, you can always book a session through my website. You can reach out to me on social media. Instagram is your best bet. I don't check TikTok messages, but I do check Instagram messages almost every day. And you can also email me at support@ashleybrickhouse.com. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and just being here with me on this journey and consciously witnessing my vulnerability. I love you so much. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure to subscribe and share it with somebody else who could use these insights. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here, and I cannot wait to connect with you again soon. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts or any questions that you might have, so feel free to reach out on Instagram at Spirituality with Ashley, or you can email me at support@ashleybrickhouse.com. Stay mindful, stay focused, and keep believing in yourself. Until next time, keep dreaming big and living your best life. I will see you in the next episode.